fun to see as the patients, all of you who are joining tonight are coming together for our meeting. I'm so excited. It's a little bit of a different webinar experience for us, because usually when we have our meetings, you guys, I can usually see you and you can see me, and it's very interactive. So this is a little bit different this time, but I want you to know I'm starting to see all your names pop up, and it's so fun to have you. We're going to start this in just a minute. I'm so excited to see good friends and wonderful faces. Well, no faces. I'm hating that I can't see your faces. I'm just going to tell you right now, but I'm loving that I can see your names and I know who you are. So welcome, friends. I think we're going to go ahead and just get started. At the very beginning, I just want to tell you, because this is a different format than we've typically had in our community before, I want you to use the chat. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you can see the chat button. I would love you to come and to say hi and let us know who you are. Feel free to use it freely. We've got Holly here. We've got Roseanne McGrath, one of our great patient advocates, and our doctors as well. And I really need to just start the meeting, but I just wanted to let all of you guys know, feel free to use the chat. It would be wonderful to introduce yourselves and say hi to us. Also, as we go along, if you have any questions at all, you put them in the Q&A, because that's going to be a significant portion of our meeting. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead. Oh my goodness, I'm loving seeing the names. This is so fun. I just want to hug you all right now. Okay, I'm not going to be able to do this webinar because I want to talk to everybody in the chat. So Holly, Roseanne, you take care of that. And I'm going to go ahead and start this meeting officially. And with hello, welcome to our PC project webinar. And this is supposed to be working. There we go. So welcome to you, all my friends. And again, this is just us talking a little bit, but any questions you have, please put in the Q&A. We're going to get to those at the end, and also use the chat freely. So with that, just so you guys know what's going on tonight, we're going to have a few introductions, then we'll do some PC project updates. Then we're going to talk about a medication in PC, talk a little bit about the clinical trial and how to participate in. And then of course, what many of you may want to be here for is the question and answer session at the end. And with that, just wanted to tell you some of our guest speakers here tonight. I think you know a lot of them. Dave Hansen, Dr. Dave Hansen and Dr. Stephen Kempers. They were both involved with the previous clinical trial. And so very good friends to the PC community. We love them. We're so grateful for the time that they're taking to be with us here tonight. And they are definitely PC experts. You know, a lot of times we lament in our community that we don't have a doctor that knows and understands PC. Well, we've got those doctors here tonight, so we're really grateful to have them. And I'll introduce her later, but you'll also see we've got Roseanne McGrath here. She is a patient advocate. She'll be talking a little bit tonight as well. With that, just wanted to give you a few updates, let you know what we've been up to at PC Project. I have to say thanks to Holly for adding this on. I just love this picture. We just went, well, I'll just show you. We just came back from the American Academy of Dermatology meeting. A big deal. Thousands and thousands of dermatologists were there, and we went for two reasons. One is to raise awareness about PC and let them know what it's all about, and also to spread news about the current clinical trial. And then we collaborated with a coalition of skin diseases leaders. And that was a great thing. It's always nice to talk to other leaders like in rare diseases and even skin diseases to know how to do things better. So we had a good time, and I just wanted to show you, we probably passed out maybe 1,000 of these. And you know, so many times we talk about PC and people think it just means thick nails. Well, it's not. And so we wanted people to know that if you've got thick calluses, or you think this is just a thick callus, or maybe even a callus that isn't painful, think again. So we worked, I guess I should say, we worked pretty hard to get that message out. So that's what we did just most recently. To let you know, another thing that's taking a lot of our time right now is the International PC Consortium Symposium. And for those of you that may be new to PC Project, we have a consortium of scientists, clinicians, and now pharma company representatives worldwide. And what happens is we gather them together once a year. Well, we talk to them all year round, but we gather them once a year, and and they report on what's going on in their labs and what's happening, what's going on in drug development. And that is happening in Oregon this June. Oh, excuse me, in May. Wow, next month is coming fast. And also, we're still doing part of it virtually. You probably, if you follow us on our social media platforms, you probably seen the advertisements for that. So we're not completely back from our COVID ways, but that's happening. And I wanted you to know that as you continue to live your lives with PC, I want you to know that here at PC Project, we are very well aware of you, and our researchers are aware of you, and they're still doing some really exciting things. So just know that even if you don't always know about this aspect of PC Project, it's alive and it's well. And we don't, even though we only meet once a year in person, we're flying with emails all the time. In fact, we meet with a group of them tomorrow on a web meeting. So just wanted to reassure all of you patients out there that we never forget why we're here and what we're doing. And if you have a doctor, you can invite them to attend. We are a very non-exclusive group. We welcome everybody. We get asked a little bit, what are we doing about a patient support meeting this year? So our board of trustees recently met and decided we're gonna be virtual again. Just like we were last November, we're gonna do another one this coming November in 2022. But if all goes well in the world, we're planning to be back in person in 2023. So stay tuned with that. And then one thing I wanted to let you know, I know this is a webinar, but if you ever want to have a web meeting about anything, we can do that quite easily. Even after our last patient support meeting, the K16 leaders were like, man, we want to get together with the K16 patients again. And I said, you name the date and the time and we'll make it happen. So if you ever just want to have a web meeting with us, maybe it's about trimming your child's nails or how to trim, or maybe just want to talk, let us know. We're here for you. Anyway, with that, wanted to also let you know that our International PC Research Registry continues to grow. And if you're on this web meeting right now, if you have PC and you haven't registered right now, please, I encourage you to do it. We've got a new database. This time you set up a username and a password. You can go in and update your information. And I think Holly's gonna put this in the chat. So if you wanna take a look at that and copy and paste that. If you have family members, friends, or even if you have children with PC, we encourage you to have them participate. It's so important that we know how many PCers are out there. I cannot tell you, even at that AAD meeting, talking to other pharma representatives and talking to doctors, they all want to know how many people are out there with PC. And I always tell them our registry isn't a census, but it is something that they look at to verify that there's enough of us out there to have a treatment. So again, just can't reiterate that enough, the importance of joining that registry. Just so you know, the participation is completely confidential and the information furthers PC research. In fact, a great thing, I just got an email the other day, I don't think our doctors even know this, from our researchers that from Stanford and Yale, who did a publication based on the PC data from the registry. Again, all confidential, doesn't tell anything about you except all that combined data. And it just got picked up by a publication or an outlet that talks to, I guess their community is 650,000 medical professionals, and they are going to do a feature on PC because of that article, because of the PC registry. So thank you so much, all of you that have participated. And again, please continue to join. Just wanted to show you pictures are powerful. And if you think of it, I know a lot of times us PCers, we hide. We don't want people to know that we have PC. In fact, earlier in this webinar, Holly put up that picture of me in a wheelchair passing out flyers. I was like, oh, this looks horrible. And she says, but that's life, that's PC. You know, I would have died at a conference without my wheelchair. And so if you ever get a chance to snap a picture of PC and how it affects you and send it to us, we would love it. Here's just one little example. This is a picture of a 9-year-old boy with PC. He came home from school. You know, his PC mutation is a really tough one. He was so exhausted from the pain that he fell asleep, and you can see his cute little feet put up. And I've shared that picture with other doctors and researchers before. And in fact, we actually had one of our lead researchers ask me the other day or comment. He said, I didn't realize people with PC, like kids, used wheelchairs. I'm like, oh no, man, we've got some work to do. So thank you all who have sent your pictures. We are using them. We actually used them, you know, just last week. So thank you so much for showing us the way PC affects you. Okay, I'm just talking a million miles an hour, but genetic testing for those in the registry. I just wanted to let you know, if you are in the registry but you haven't received your genetic testing yet, it's very simple. No blood draws required anymore. It's a beautiful thing. All you do is simply, we say it's spit, put some saliva in a little kit that we mail to you, and then you mail it back and we send it to the lab. It's a beautiful thing. In fact, Holly put this little graphic right here. It's a fun little thing to do, and it's easy. And why genetic testing? Well, for one, there's a lot of diseases out there. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. I should say a handful, a dozen or so, that have similarities to PC. And until we know what you've got through genetic testing, we don't really know. And in fact, we just got one the other day, and I was sure, I would have bet my first child that that person had PC, and they didn't have PC. So I even get surprised a little bit. And of course, genetic testing is required to participate in the clinical trial right now. Some treatments are being developed to target specific mutations, so you're going to want to have that. And then, of course, a definitive diagnosis is wonderful. You can share it with your doctors. You know, so many of you have let me know that your doctor doesn't believe that your PC callus is really hurt, but when you can say, this is what I've got, this is the mutation, and it's a wonderful thing. You can also show it to schools, employees, you get work accommodations if you need it. So it's just a great thing to have that diagnosis. And then it's not moving. Okay, there we go. Just a couple of housekeeping items before I finish. I just wanted to remind everybody that if you ever move or you update your email or your phone number, so please make sure we have your recent contact information, especially that phone number and email. A lot of things are happening right now, especially as you notice clinical trials. We are exploring a number of things right now. We do not want to lose you. So please update your information. If anything happens, and if you're in doubt, just make sure you email it to us. Let us know who you are and where you are. Finally, I just wanted to I can't have a meeting without saying thank you to all of you who donate to PC Project and to our important mission. Just so grateful for our monthly donors, for all of you who just continue to support our cause. We so much appreciate you. Another just internal thing we wanted to let you know is we are overhauling our website. Last fall, we let you all know, or we sent out a survey, and you guys gave us some fabulous feedback. And from that, we are working with programmers right now, so we're happy about that. I wanted to let you know, if you are on our social media platforms, we have a social media intern now. You probably noticed we post about 2 or 3 times a week now, which is great because we continue to get new patients and new followers there. And I think that's really important in this world. So wanted to welcome Kara. And finally, wanted to let you know how grateful I am for the volunteers. We have volunteers that are just adding so much to us. We've got one, I think he's on the call. I think I saw his name come up, Shrikant, who is also doing some social media posts. He's helping us with our website. And, you know, we just have so many great people that are helping us. Roseanne is one, you'll hear from her in a minute. And one, I can conclude with this. One of our volunteers made us this brochure. My thing keeps freezing a little bit. Sorry about that. There we go. I'm just too impatient. And I wanted to let all of you know this because I think a lot of times you guys talk to doctors, or you need something to take to a doctor or to take to a school. You know, you want to share with a school teacher or somebody so your child doesn't have to get marked tardy because it took them too long to get from class to class. That we've got this fabulous new brochure. It's on the website. We're happy to send it to you. I also have a link to it in our next newsletter that's coming out this month. So again, this was done because of a volunteer. So just know we've got resources for you to use. We're so grateful for you. And with that, if again, I've just been going yak, 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 but if you have any questions about what PC Project's doing, what we're up to, please send it in the Q&A and we'll get to it at the end. Dr. Hansen, not Dr. Kempers.
We're up to the thing now. This is Dr. Hansen. I'm at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City and have had a long interest in PC. They've asked me to talk to you a little bit about an exciting molecule called rapamycin that has some promise for controlling or improving the symptoms that we associate with PC. Rapamycin is currently an approved medication and has been for a number of years for a number of other disorders, not for Pachyonychia, but for other things. And so it's not a new medicine, and there's a lot of information about how to use it and an effect it has on people. The interesting part about rapamycin is that it's a medication that blocks what's called a metabolic pathway in the cells. And this pathway produces proliferation and controls growth of cells. If you can inhibit that pathway, you can then block the pathway that turns on the genes that result in the genetic mutations that cause PC. So there's a pathway that runs through the cells that results in the production of the abnormal proteins. Rapamycin has the ability to block that pathway and hence reduce the number of those abnormal proteins in the skin. Palvella was a company that's interested in developing this particular product, was able to put rapamycin into a very elegant topical gel. So it's applied to the skin as opposed to be taken by mouth or by injection. This medication is applied directly on the skin. It penetrates then into the layers of skin that are responsible for the synthesis and manufacture of the mutations that create PC. And so again, this topical rapamycin gel may inhibit or block those signals. And then by doing so, it blocks the calluses and blisters and pain that's associated with this condition. So it's an exciting thing that we can show in the laboratory that this seems to be effective in blocking it. We just don't know how well it blocks it in clinical studies. And the next slide talks a little bit about, and Holly, I don't know whether that goes to the next one, but we wondered about a little bit about the safety of this medication. Are there risks involved in terms of applying this to the feet? Palvella has done a group of patients, in fact, 75 patients, where they were dosed with 1 pump of the gel from a dispenser on the feet each day for a period of 24 to 48 weeks, so a long period of time of application. The key findings from this safety study, we found that topical rapamycin, this gel, was well tolerated, and it did not increase the symptoms associated with PC. So it had no ability to make PC symptoms worse. Secondly, they looked at common community infections. These are things like upper respiratory infections or urinary tract infections. We found no difference in the group that were using rapamycin than a control group in a community that had the same exposure. And so it didn't seem to increase the risk of having other types of infections. There was extensive blood work that was done on these 75 individuals, and there were no abnormalities that were found in the blood as part of this study. And as a part of that, there were no unexpected medical events and no deaths associated with the medication, so that we always are responsible to look for unexpected events that could be a result of the medication. In this case, they were unable to find any medical events that seemed to be associated with that. So with that safety data, we think this is a very safe medication to go ahead and use. And we're going to then talk to you a little bit about this thing called the VAPAUS trial. That's the name given to this clinical trial. And Dr. Kempers is going to talk to you a little bit about what's involved in that particular trial. So Dr. Kempers, we'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks. So as mentioned, I do clinical studies. I'm in a derm group with about 16 dermatologists in Minneapolis. And so 4 days a week, I do clinical studies, and I do about 25 a year. It's all sponsored by drug companies, and it's for big diseases, it's for small diseases, and all the things you see on TV advertised all the time. but this is an exciting study, and I was part of the previous study leading up to this study. So thanks for taking time out of your evening to attend the webinar, and my hope is that this event will help us generate some enthusiasm to fill this study as quickly as possible. But as far as this study goes, the objective is to determine if this topical rapamycin gel can improve the subject's or patient's ability to function while they're doing activities on their feet. The plan is to have at least 78 people who will be assigned to either receive the topical rapamycin gel or the placebo gel. And for those of you who don't know how studies are run, there are many reasons, but it's required typically to have some people get the fake and some the real. So they have the gel with the rapamycin in it, and the other half in this study, it's 50-50, will just have the gel without the active ingredient. And you and we will not know which group you're assigned to, and that's assigned randomly. So the timeline is that the whole study for each person is about 8 months long. Initially, there's a month and a half of preparation called the screening and baseline period, where we see if you're qualified. But then if you are qualified, there's 6 months of using the gel, again, real or placebo, and there are 4 in-person visits, and that's called the treatment period. Following that, there is a 1-month follow-up when you stop the gel. That's called the follow-up period. For participating in the study, the travel, the lodging, and meals for you and a caregiver will be provided for every visit in the clinic. And in addition to that, there's a stipend for you if you attend those visits as well. Anyone interested in participating will go through what's called informed consent. That describes all of the study details. And the 4 bullet points here initially will include the purpose of the study, what's involved in the study, the risks of participating, such as the side effects, but also the benefits of taking part in the study. So you and your family will be given an opportunity to ask questions during the process and throughout the entire study. And what's key is this is strictly voluntary. If at any time you want to withdraw consent, you can withdraw, no questions asked. Depending upon the type of medications you're taking, you may need to stop those before starting the study. There's a whole list of what are called inclusion and exclusion criteria for every study, but here are just a few of the main inclusion criteria. For this study, participants must be at least 18 years of age, but there's no upper limit. You have to be diagnosed with PC, and they're only including the 4 subtypes, the KRT6A, KRT6B, KRT6C, and the KRT17 genetic mutations. Then there's the Clinical Global Impression Scale, the CGIS. That's just the physician's judgment of your severity once we talk to you and examine your foot, and you have to be at least moderate, but again, that's the physician's evaluation. We'll do an examination of the bottom of your foot or the plantar surface to see if you have signs of PC, and you have to also be able and be willing to maintain stable foot care regimen throughout the course of the study. Participants of childbearing potential must agree to use a highly effective form of birth control for the entire duration of the study. As far as the exclusion criteria, currently you can't be using medicines that are medicated, whether it's topical, ointments, or any other treatments that could affect the assessment of the safety and efficacy of our treatment study medication. You cannot have had prior treatment with rapamycin or any other mTOR inhibitor. Any future intentional changes in the participant's daily activities associated with being on the feet, not resulting from a change in the participant's condition due to involvement in the study. And you cannot have a history of acute liver failure defined as cirrhosis of the liver. Now, again, there's a much more extensive list that we can go over ahead of time if someone wants to ask those questions, but these are gone over with the participants at the initial study visit.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Kempers and Dr. Hansen. I'm going to let Roseanne go ahead and talk to you for a minute, but I want to make one clarification. We think we catch it all, but there was a typo if you didn't see it on the chat on the slide, that K16 is definitely part of the trial. And in fact, if you're on here and you have K17, we're so sorry at this point, K17s aren't going to be included. I guess one of these doctors could answer this better than me, but there's a reason why, and I think most who have K16, or excuse me, K17 know, but just know if you have K16, you are definitely needed in this trial. And so with that, I want to just introduce, if you don't know her already, Roseanne McGrath. She'll probably tell you she's patient number 1 in the registry. That's her claim to fame. And we love her. She's been involved with us from day 1. So we are grateful for her for being a patient advocate. You've probably talked to her on the phone recently. And Roseanne, I'm just going to let you go ahead and speak to whatever you want to say on this slide.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Janice, and thank you, Drs. Hansen and Kempers. So I just need everyone to know that there is an army of individuals that are out there that are trying to make trial participation easier for all of us. And there will be a clinical trial screening enrollment event. I spoke to many of you about it, starting in New York City in the Manhattan area, one of these upcoming Saturdays on April 23rd. So I am begging many of you to come and join me in New York City, even though it's not PC friendly, but they're going to make it PC friendly for us. But if this location does not work for you, please let us know that you are interested in participating in a trial. And we will work with the army of individuals that are on this meeting with us tonight and see if we can host another event that is closer to you. As Janice said, I've been around a long time. 18 years to be exact, and I am patient number 1. And there is a long list of people that are too humble to tell you the amount of time that they tirelessly devote on our behalf. It's unimaginable. I mean, we're talking 16 hours a day, guys. I mean, and these are people that are trying to find us a cure and trying to find us relief. It starts with the Schwartz family, from Mary, who passed the baton to Janice, PC Project, especially Holly, our esteemed Board of Trustees, our fellow PCer, Jack Padovano, the doctors, the physicians, the scientists, Pavella. And I have to mention this because the reason I mention time, we're all busy. We all have our professional and personal lives. Plus, we as PCers, we are exhausted from the physical, mental, emotional pain that we have to experience. But I am begging you, please, just let's give back to all of these individuals that are devoting their time, efforts, and energies on our behalf. I mean, the least we can do is to try to see if we could participate in a trial and/or to try to give some of our financial resources. So although I am spontaneous, and that cracks me up because I am the furthest thing from spontaneous, having to mind map every step I take, many of you are not, and you have family histories and family genetics. So I am pleading with you, if you could think about your fellow family members and cousins, aunts and uncles that might be able to participate in a trial, and to please get registered and or genetically confirmed. Janice mentioned about updating our contact info. I just recently tried to reach out to well over 24 people, and many of us move and we don't update our contact information. Please always remember when you change your address and so forth, please also do it with PC Project. So just as a last ditch effort, I am just imploring you to please consider assessing the opportunity for a clinical trial for yourself, and please just try to give back to those that are dedicating their lives and their professions and their time to alleviating our pain, finding us a cure for us and our caregivers. And to you, my brothers and sisters with PC, help me help you. And Jack told me something the other day that I have to just share with you. We are in it to win it, because a cure for you and a cure for me means that we someday may all walk pain-free. Thank you. I hope to see you all in New York.
Thank you, Roseanne. Really appreciate that. I just want all of you on this call to know I didn't tell her to say any of that. We just said, Roseanne, you've been calling these people, say what you want to say. It is humbling, but we do work hard. I'll just say it right there. We do work hard for you. We care very much about you guys. In fact, sometimes when I get really tired, I'm like, oh, okay, I can just live the rest of my life and be okay with PC. It's okay. But then I get these young moms that call me and they're nervous and they're worried about the future of their kids. Or, you know, honestly, some of my best friends in this community are some of the oldest people in our community. And it kills me to think that we don't have a treatment for them yesterday. It drives me nuts, in fact. And so we are motivated, but we do it because we love you guys. Thus, you see our heart is everywhere. So thank you, Roseanne. Thank you, Drs. Hansen and Kempers. At this time, I'm gonna quit sharing let's quit sharing the screen, Holly. And we're gonna pop up and we're gonna answer some questions that have come in the Q&A. And I think right now, I'm gonna cheat Abby, if that's okay. Abby's gonna moderate for us. And but one of the questions, the very first one, was about this trial that says, can you tell me more about the New York City event on Saturday, April 23rd? And maybe Roseanne, keep your camera on. Why don't you go ahead and answer that one?
Sure. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody offline. And we are coordinating with Palvella, who is using Healthy iVibe. I hope I say that correctly. If I didn't, Cindy or Abby, I apologize. But they will then follow up to coordinate the travel arrangements. So, you know, through the clinical trial, there's 4 in-person sessions, as you previously heard, and they, as of right now, would be in New York. There is also one on the West Coast that will be in the California area, that I think is on or about May 4th. So you could select which of the 2 would be better for your location. But all expenses would be paid for you and a loved one to travel to one of those 2 locations. And again, on Saturday, April 23rd. And that would be hopefully the day where you would make the assessment and or consent to the trial, and also to see if you would qualify. And that would be considered the first of the 4 in-person sessions.
And then, thank you, Roseanne. And then just I'm trying to think, if you go to New York City or this New York City area, you have your first thing. At that point, you may or may not go back to New York. So for example, if you live in Ohio, I'm throwing that out, and you go to New York and you have your very first assessment, you get your first appointment, then your next appointment might be at one of the regularly established clinical trial sites. I think that's the plan. And if somebody knows different, text me. Abby, you look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, we're actually working through that right now, and a lot of it will depend on where the patients are located. And the real goal, though, is to make it as easy on patients as possible. So we want to really coordinate based on, you know, where people are located, what would be easiest, where our clinical trial sites are located. And, you know, the idea was also to ensure we could bring people back to New York for those where that also made sense as well. But we're going to be working through that. And to add on to what Roseanne said, and again, I'm Abby Steele. Hi, I'm with Healthy Vibe, and we're helping work with Dr. Kempers and his wonderful clinical staff to help support the event on April 23rd. And basically, the Dr. Kempers will work through, and his staff will work through what we call a consenting and screening visit with patients. And Dr. Kempers, I don't know if you want to describe a little bit about sort of what that would entail for the actual patient to go through that visit.
Sure. Yeah, usually the first visit takes about an hour and a half. And so the family would sit down with me and or my coordinator and go through the consent, read through it, make sure they understand, answer every question that they have to their understanding, to their mean, to make sure that they feel very comfortable. And if they are interested, then they sign the consent and we sign it and they can take that with them. Then we start going through that whole inclusion exclusion criteria and make sure someone isn't pregnant and has other problems, that they still qualify. There's the foot exam, and eventually it ends up with a blood test that would be done, because they want healthy volunteers also. And so the whole process takes about, like I said, about an hour and a half. And then there is that 6-week time period where we have you go home and you have to answer the questions at home. And so that's something you do on your own. But that first visit is just to make sure that you meet all the inclusion and don't meet any of the exclusion criteria for the study. So everyone is an apple to apple to apple comparison on the study. Not that other people wouldn't qualify or it wouldn't work in them, but they want to have everyone have certain criteria that everyone's healthy and qualifies.
Perfect. And I think I need to just add, because of who asked the question, is anybody that was in the previous study, you know, in 2019, I think it was 18, 19, something like that. I am so sorry you can't be in this trial right now. Well, enough said. They call them treatment naive patients. They want patients that haven't had the drug touch their feet before. So if you were in the trial before and you got screened out at the beginning and the medication never touched your feet, you could possibly be in this trial this time. But anybody that had that medication touch it before cannot do it. And I am so sorry. I wish you all could do it. But we are, like I said, it's a phase, we did the phase 2, now it's phase 3. So this is a fabulous place to be for a group like us. Okay.
Yeah, and then just to add on, in terms of just pure logistics, if you're able to come to New York, we will help you with travel arrangements, any hotel needs. You'll be able to come with bring somebody with you, family member or caregiver, friend, and we will, handle all the logistics, take care of everything you need. We are still working through all the little details, but all of that would be arranged on your behalf. And so that's why I know you've already talked, some of you may have talked to Roseanne already and expressed interest. And then for others, I know we put up the email address if you want to send an email to the info email address. We will follow up with all the details.
And
Great.
Abby, if I may just interject, I know there's been some questions. We're very sensitive that traveling is not easy for us with PC. So certainly when you speak with Cindy or Abby, if you need to arrive the evening prior and also stay an extra night, we will work all that out with you. And we are hoping, since there'll be a group of us as PCers together, that we'll do something together, break bread or do something. So we'll get a chance to also make a little PC patient support group out of it as well.
Great. Fantastic. And Abby, I see there's a lot of questions in the Q&A, so we'll quit interrupting you and let you.
This is great. And we encourage folks to continue to ask questions. Why don't we go through them? Some are really geared for the doctors and some are specific to the trial itself. First question is, did anything ever become of the case report that suggested rosuvastatin for PC? Either physician know anything about that?
There's never been a specific trial looking at that, but we've had an interest in it. But the information we have so far suggests that it has not been effective in a majority of patients. So it continues to be an area of some interest, but there's been no clinical study specifically looking at that question. So it's still open, but it doesn't seem very promising.
Thank you. Is there any relation between PC, thickened nails, and normal nail fungal infections? This person said, every new doctor I've talked to has assumed it's nail fungus, and it's hard to deny the resemblance.
Well, I can answer, and if you want to add anything, Dr. Hansen, that'd be great. But yeah, just because someone has thick nails doesn't mean it's one disease or the other. And when I do studies also, other diseases have thick nails. Psoriasis can have thick nails. So there are people who may have psoriasis and nail fungus, or PC and nail fungus, but as far as I know, there's no correlation. So when we do see patients that come in and you wonder, we can do a nail clipping and grow the nail and see if there is fungus there, but they're two completely different entities. And you can have, like I said, you can have one disease and another one, you know, one is 5% of the population, one's 10%. There's some people who can have both of those. So I suppose there are people with PC who would have nail fungus, but they're two completely different entities.
And it's interesting, it doesn't appear to be any more common in the PC population than it does in the control or the normal population, so that it doesn't seem to predispose or prevent nail infections either way.
Great. There's a question about whether if you're live in another country, Canada, there was a question about Brazil, if you can participate. I just want to confirm this. I believe it's in US and UK residents. We're focused on the US right now, obviously, with these events.
Right. The previous study, we included the Canadian sites, but there were some issues with the medicine across the borders and blood testing. And so it was just the logistics. So for this study, apparently it's just the UK and the US.
Great.
A question being asked about whether you know at this point what causes the pain from PC.
I'm giving this to Dave.
I was hoping Dr. Kempers was going to jump in. There's been some evidence that the fragile, what are called keratinocytes, or the fragile skin cells that are associated with PC may produce blister formation or changes underneath the calluses that make them very painful, just like a blister when you're running becomes painful in the bottom of your feet. It seems that those fragile skin cells will break down and produce blistering underneath the calluses. And so that's been one explanation. There may also be some changes in what are called cutaneous nerves, or nerves that innervate the skin, that are altered in PC and contribute to the pain. So both those are possibilities that are being looked at.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. Is there, also related to pain, is there a time in a PCer's life that the PC will hurt the worst? And along with that, does your PC shrink as you get older?
Go ahead, Roseanne. No, I see Roseanne's trying to talk, but she's muted. You don't have to answer. I just thought you were trying to talk, so I wanted to make sure you could answer if you wanted to.
I can definitely say I've seen changes over different periods of my life.
And I would add that I think most of this, most with PC adapt to the pain. They do things, they don't overdo things that cause pain. And so they learn to live with the disease so that it can be worse with age, but it depends on what you do with your feet. And it begins very young. It begins when they're elementary school and they don't participate in athletics as often. And so those all contribute to the pain, and the pain increases as you spend more time on your feet.
Right. You know, we see that traditionally in our registry as well. You know, just as little kids, sometimes they learn to crawl, then they learn to walk, and it depends also on the mutation. But a lot of times little infants or little toddlers start to walk, and then they get the blisters, and then they start to crawl again because their feet hurt. And, you know, so just as children become more weight bearing, as they get a little bit older and a little bit older, the pain gets worse that way. And we do, I think, overall, though, see that the pain gets worse through, you know, adolescence and into adulthood. A lot of times, again, I'm just going on things that we've seen with our registry. We see people that are maybe even teenagers who play sports, or they go ahead and get jobs that they think they're okay on their feet, and then maybe in their mid-20s they all of a sudden are like, wait a minute, and their feet get worse and worse. And then all of a sudden they have a problem and they're not able to, employment becomes a problem because they didn't train for something that would keep them more off their feet. So it's a common problem that we see. So again, overall, according to our registry data, patients report that their PC gets worse and worse as, this sounds awful, the pain gets worse as they get old, not to depress everybody, guys. But but that's just what the data has told us. And then a lot of times after they retire, and again, they're not on their feet as much, they're like, hey, I'm okay, I'm not as bad, so they're not in their 80s having horrific pain, but maybe they're just not hurting. And if you want to comment in the chat, go for it. I'd love to know what this group is saying, because we're not interactive here. One other thing that I do have to comment about PC pain is that sometimes, like when I was in college, I would go dancing and I knew that I would not be able to get the pain under control until about 2 p.m. the next day. I just knew that was going to happen, that I was going to blister, I was going to hurt, and that I was going to pay for that. So there are activities that would make it so that you hurt more just because you're on the feet more. That said, I think most of us with PC also know that we might do nothing and we'll find out that our feet are just hurting for no reason. Just like, what happened? Or maybe there's a reason. Actually, we kind of laugh. Sometimes we think the temperature either dropped or increased by 30 degrees. And we all go, oh, wow, our feet are killing us. So PC is tricky that way. The variability of pain can just come up for no reason at all. Roseanne, do you want to comment on that? I don't know if that's true for you.
Yes, true.
Anyway, pain is a tough thing. When we surveyed you guys, the number one reason you go see a doctor is because of pain. So, okay, Abby, carry on.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, this is really interesting. So another question about the trial. Dr. Kempers, I don't know if you can answer this, but can you please talk about why it is that K17 is excluded?
Yes, Dr. Hansen, I think it was included in the previous study, or they added some patients, but
it was done as a sub-trial. It was an initial trial, no K17s were used. They seem to behave slightly different than the K6A, B, and C, and K16s. They have different manifestations, particularly cysts in K17 that can be very painful and difficult, but rapamycin doesn't seem to have any effect on the cysts. And so that in order to avoid confusion and comparing groups of individuals in a study, they've excluded K17 until we have a better mechanism to measure that improvement.
That said, we are very well aware of you K17s out there, and we hope if this drug passes, that it can help your feet as well. Just the cyst made it a little more complex. So they want just a more streamlined study. And somebody text me if this is wrong, but that was my understanding as well. I think Dr. Hansen, you nailed it, but just know we care very much about you. And on a little side note, I just want to say for you K17s, one of our key researchers in the UK just received, it's public knowledge, let's see, $450,000 grant to study the cysts. And one of the reasons she got that funding is because I know, because I helped write a letter of support for it, because we have K17 patients that need help for those cysts. And we also know that K6As and K6Bs have yucky cysts. I shouldn't say yucky, problematic cysts as well, just not quite as tricky as the K17. So just know that that is an aspect of PC that we care very much about. And even though this trial focuses primarily on the pain of the feet and the walking, we care about it all, and you're all remembered.
If participants, actually related to the genetic testing, if somebody is interested in the New York event, would you be able to, and had not done their genetic testing, would you be able to do that prior to that event?
Absolutely. Sorry, I don't mean to be the big talker. I just know this answer because we talked about it.
Okay.
If you are interested at all, you let us know right away. Holly, will you put the info@pachyonychia.org email in the chat too, just to make it super easy? Just email us and tell us, hey, I need a saliva kit. We'll send it to you. It's fast. And from my understanding is Palvella has said it's okay, especially if we know you have PC. You know, you're connected with a family, you just don't have that test, you need it. Or if you look like you have PC, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to get that test done ASAP. So it's just easy. We send it to you in the mail. It's not going to go back to us. It's going to go straight to the lab. And these tests are fast. So please do it. Yeah.
If participants in the trial are identified at the end of the trial as having been given the placebo, will they then be given the medicated gel after the fact?
That is a great question. Any of you doctors know? I don't know enough about the protocol.
Do either of you know? Otherwise, we can certainly follow
Right.
up with a
At this point, there's no plans that I've heard of to roll over people to what's called an open label, where everyone gets it at that point.
Okay. One thing I have to, we'll follow up with that and let you know for sure the answer. If I could say one thing, so for example, I'm not in the trial. I'm not allowed, and that's okay. I know too much, but I hope all of us catch the vision of this, because if the drug works for enough patients, if they can see between the difference, and that's the beauty of the placebo. You don't have to worry about it. You just do it, and if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, great too, no problem. But if it does get passed, then we're all going to have access to it. So that's the beauty of what we're doing. So we'll follow up, we'll let you know, but hopefully we're all going to be slapping it on our feet someday. That I probably can't say that legally, but that's my hope as a patient. How's that?
That's great. I think we are at the end of our questions. I don't know if any of our panelists wanted to say any closing remarks.
Actually, I'm seeing another one in the chat area that just came up.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that one?
Yes.
Severe itching.
Yeah. Severe itching from the inner blood nerves near callus areas, especially nighttime in the middle of sleep. Itchy feeling later turns to unbearable burning and pain. Any information on this condition, and are there any remedies? Dr. Hansen.
I think we're talking neurovascular structures.
Yes. They're not measuring that particular problem in this study, but the hope is that if the rapamycin is helpful, it would help those aspects as well, with the itching, as well as the pain and the calluses. And so that we don't have any data to support that at this point, but we certainly think the pain gets better. And I think the itching would also respond if we can see that response.
And in the meantime, trial aside, is there anything you could recommend for this? You know, if somebody's burning and hurting because of those neurovascular structures, any thoughts on that? Just in the meantime?
Jan, you're probably the expert.
I will tell you, those are awful. They're awful. Well, you want to know the truth, my feet are looking pretty good right now, but I've had a lot of those open neurovascular things. Here's my secret right here. I use, when my feet are really bad like that and the nerve endings are a little more open, my feet are a little more bloody, I use, okay, I'm just going to say it. It's called Americain. It is a hemorrhoid ointment. And we buy it in bulk from Amazon. And I've thought anybody that ever fills my order must think I have a huge hemorrhoid problem. But what it does is yeah, sorry, Roseanne, I know, no filter right here. But basically it's an ointment, and it has a cane in it. Is I think a benzocaine. So there's a numbing ointment. So you can't do this if you're going to be Americain. Yeah, that's the cane. And basically I've slapped it on my feet for temporary relief. It helps in the middle of the night. It is greasy, but it's a cane. And I know some of our other patients have used other kinds of things like lidocaine, you know, things like that, you know, when you've got some of those open wounds that just hurt because they're, you know, the nerve endings of the blood vessels stick out. So again, this is not your medical advice, but you can buy it over the counter, but that's something that helps me just when it's really painful. So, and I can even write that in the chat. We have another question in the chat too. We're getting
Yeah, and we also have another Q&A that just came in. Somebody that's interested in participating but takes daily pain meds and wondering if this will be an exclusion criteria for the trial.
We'd have to see what medication that is, but right, since we're judging pain, they don't want people on pain medicines because that would negate any improvement or our abilities. So for people with severe pain, that may be problematic. So we, on a case-by-case basis, let's talk about what those medicines are and how often they're taking them. But yeah, that sounds like it may be difficult.
And before we would schedule somebody to come all the way to New York, for example, these are the kinds of pre-screening questions we can ask so that we'll know ahead of time. And then of course, as part of the screening visit in New York, the doctor will review all of the medications in your medical history that you have to just confirm. But these are some things that we can try to figure out sooner rather than later.
right. And let the doctors make that decision, not you. If you're listening right now, don't say, oh, I'm taking this and so I'm not going to try. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
In the previous trial, we did have individuals who were on certain types of pain medication, and we try to make it consistent so that pain medication is not responsible for improvement or worsening during the study. But that's something that they need to talk to the physicians about as part of the screening visit, as to what's allowed and what's not, and what can be used and what can't be used during the trial. So those are questions that need to be discussed. But it wouldn't be a reason to not show up for the visit.
Great. Does the question about it's a side effect, adverse event question about the medication? Does the gel burn your feet when you put it on, or when you have cracks and out in the gel and put it on? Has that been reported?
Yeah.
Wish we could ask.
In my experience, the patients who were on that initial trial thought it felt wonderful. They actually liked the gel, they liked the feeling on their feet. I don't think we had anyone who complained about burning or whatever, even with what are called fissures or cracks in the feet. It didn't seem that it aggravated those cracks. It was very, very well tolerated by almost all patients in the trial.
Great. Janice, I don't know if you have any other final comments or
Yeah,
questions.
Oh, I just had one other, maybe this is a really important one. Do we need to be vaccinated to be in the screening? Is the vaccination a criteria for coming to New York City?
Dr. Kempers, you've had a few patients.
I mean, I guess that's a New York rule. I don't know. That's because I live in Minnesota. There's nothing with the study itself and not coming to our site in Minnesota. So it's not specific to the study. It's just if it was in New York.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to just confirm and follow up on. We will have, mask requirements, of course, because we are setting up a healthcare setting. But I think it's important that we confirm that.
Okay, I just got it confirmed. We are fast. The answer is no. So you don't need to be vaxxed to be in the study. So hey, we are efficient. We're getting real-time answers right now. So
love it.
This is a fact. Okay, it says it's a New York rule for being indoors sometimes. I live in New York. Okay, well, I think here you're going to be okay. But we'll follow up with anything that you might need. But as far as being in the study, no, I think you're going to be fine.
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Abby, I do have one other question from a PCer who resides 50% of the time in Canada, 50% of the time in Mexico, but does come through the US quite frequently. Would that be somebody that could possibly be considered for the trial?
I think we'd have to look into it more. I mean, the problem is there's certain visits and time periods. So it's not just that you can come and go. There's certain set time points. And if you can't, just like people who live in Minnesota and say, oh, but I spent 6 months in Florida and I can't come back, you're going to miss the visit. So it would depend upon how often you go between Mexico and Canada.
Okay.
You
Why
know,
don't I follow up with this individual, get more details and
right. We'd have to discuss it just on a case-by-case basis. If in doubt, check it out. I have a feeling now who know who this one is, so this is great.
The visits would need to be done in the US, and that would be the bottom line, is that they can't be done in Canada, can't be done in Mexico. So they would have to commit to come to visits in the US as scheduled.
Great. This is great. You know, I just want to make sure there isn't anything important that we missed. There was a question about Accutane. Would Accutane be an exclusion criteria?
Is the person taking Accutane for their feet or simply because? I have to look at the inclusion again. Are they taking it for acne or some other medical condition, or are they doing it because it would help the hyperkeratosis? That's the question.
Yeah, we'd have to look at it. You know, if you have a question and we haven't answered it, and it's one of those, you know, or you haven't asked it and that's why we haven't answered it, you know, like Accutane or anything else, just the main thing is just indicate your interest in the trial, and then we'll take it from there. Don't exclude yourself if you're not sure. How does that sound? So I know we've talked a lot about the trial. Is there anything else, any other comments? I recognize the time. Is there any other comments, questions from our doctors, Roseanne? Anybody? About anything, I guess. Okay, this has been great. Friends, thank you for being here. I know this was a lot about the trial, but you can clearly tell that we want it enrolled. We do not want a drug. If a drug doesn't get passed for PC, we want it to not get passed because it doesn't work. We don't want a drug to not get passed because we don't have enough patients. And I think we're going to do it. We're going to make it, but we need you. And I'm so grateful to all of you who have sacrificed time. And not just that, for all the things in our community. You guys are wonderful. It's driving me nuts that I can't see your faces, but I've seen your names, like I said. We love you guys. We think of you each day when we work, when we do our things, sometimes probably too much as we lay in bed at night and can't sleep because of the things we think about that we need to do. But just know that we're friends, we're family. This is why we're here. And we look forward to more. And if you have other questions for us that we didn't talk about either in this, you know, about the clinical trial or just about PC project, send us an email. We're always, like I said, we're always working with people. We probably owe Dr. Hansen a lot more than we ever give him. He volunteers so much for us, and he's always answering questions for us that we have from patients all the time. So, and watch out, Dr. Kempers. Now I've got your email, so you're in trouble too. But we know how dedicated these wonderful doctors are, and that's just kind of reflective of the people in our community. You guys are fabulous. So thank you so much. Stay in touch. Loving you all. Thanks for the love in the that's coming in the chat and my text and my personal everything. So feel the love. We won't stop until the pain stops. That's what we say, right? So with that, I think we're good. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you on the other side. Take care.
Good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Love you all. Bye-bye.